Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the M365 Pulse. We are joined today by myself, Tom, and Tamara. Jen is super busy, but she loves everyone and sends her regards. This is technically Friday, I guess, May 28th. We're actually about to move into the weekend before Memorial Day, so if you're watching it then, hopefully you guys had a good holiday weekend and enjoyed yourself. We'll have a relatively straightforward and short show today. There's not a ton of updates that are coming out. There was a whole bunch of really cool stuff that came out over the last couple of weeks in the Azure space because they had Microsoft Build. So if you're someone who's interested in that, I definitely encourage you to check it out. There's actually a link if you just Google it called the Big Book of News for Azure or for Microsoft Build. They'll just have a huge rundown of everything they did. But we obviously focus on Microsoft 365 here and don't go into the Azure space as much. So we're going to be looking at the updates that are relevant to the Microsoft roadmap for this week. So going into it, as always, we're going to start in development, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Tamara to talk about what she found that she really liked this week.
Great, thank you. So, a couple things. In Microsoft Forms for GCC, GCC High, and the Department of Defense, file upload question is available. That means that form designers are able to add a file upload to questions to Microsoft Forms to collect respondents' uploaded file in GCC, GCC High, and the DoD environment. Also, Microsoft Forms, the shortened URL in response link, enable form shortened URLs in the government and DoD environment. So that's GCC, GCC High, and DoD. So those are some of the things that I'm excited about. Tom, what do you have going on?
Well, a couple things that pop out to me for this week is one, in Microsoft Teams, they're now giving you an option to lower all the raised hands. So instead of having to try to track down the people who have raised their hands, it's like, everybody, put your hands down, click, and we don't have that distraction anymore. I love this. The other
I
thing that
think that's going to be great for when you're asking people to respond. Hey, have you done this?
oh
Go ahead
yeah,
and raise your
raise your
hand
hands and then clean it out instead of
and have people
wondering.
vote and then put their hands
Yeah.
down. Yeah,
Instead of the person going, did you have a question or have you just not turned your
exactly.
hands
I
off?
love
Yeah.
how I love how she has like practical good advice. I was 100% on your side, Tom. Like being an admin, I was like, when like someone has their hand up and like clearly the presenter is ignoring them and it's annoying as heck. Like that's what I was thinking of. We did a training this week at our company, and some guy had his hand raised for like the first 30 minutes of the training, and my eye was like twitching there, seeing the little yellow hand sitting up. But
This is
this
like
is why we
following
have
somebody.
Tamara to like balance us out with like real helpful practical advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is like following somebody down the road and they've got their blinker on. You're like, would you please
Yeah.
turn your freaking
Oh
blinker
no.
off?
Yeah,
And
I was
Tamara's
sitting
going,
there like I'm sure if you could see my eye, it was
yeah.
just like
Yeah, and Tamara's like, well, he may have a hearing impediment, which keeps him from being able to hear the clicker on the. It's like, no, turn it off. Oh, so the other one that I saw out there that I'll bring up right away is the Outlook pinning emails on Android and iOS. So if you've been used to being able to pin emails in Outlook on the web, you can now take that same concept down to Android and iOS, which if you're using a lot of, hey, I want to put this up at the top so I don't forget it or something like this, but I'm on the road and I use my phone, this is a really good way to be able to get that same level of functionality without having to come up with some other workaround until you get back to a laptop or something like that. So, Adam, take us into Nerd World.
sure. I'm only gonna mention one this week because I thought it was kind of cool. This isn't even that nerdy. I mean, it's nerdy. Let's be real, but it's not like overly nerdy. But I thought it was cool. They're now putting something on in development, and it's scheduled for July, so a couple weeks out, where they're basically going to allow non-admin users to install the language packs they need for their Office applications.
Good
So
idea.
why this is relevant if you go through and do it. You probably don't think about it, or at least I know I used to not, but you're going through, and by default, when you install it, it just installs as English. But what happens if you don't speak English? What happens if you're a region where it's not there? Or even I've had it in the case where a use case would be I had some coworkers who sold to Latin America. LATAM is what they call it, right? So they sold to the Latin American regions, but they actually would prefer if they're going through and typing to be working in the applications that do that because it would do correct pronunciation, correct, stuff like that. But so before, if you wanted to go through and do this, admins had to do it. And when I say admins, I mean admins at the local machine level. So if you
Oh,
wanted to
wow.
go in and install a new language pack, you basically had to have admin rights at the local machine level, or you could go in through like a group policy or the Office deployment app and try to deploy it for everyone. But again, taking that use case I had earlier at my old job, there were 2 salespeople in an organization that I knew of that wanted specifically Portuguese and Spanish language packs if they were dealing with Brazil or Latin America, but no one else out of the 400 people in my department did. So either they would have had to have people that had local admin rights go down, work on those computers and deploy them directly, or they would have had to done group policy deployment and just target those specific machines, either of which is not a desirable outcome. So instead, what this now does is even if you don't have local admin rights on your computer, with this new change come July, you'll actually be able to install just the language pack features for there. So basically, these people could have served themselves. They could go out, get the language pack they need, and install that in their Office apps, which I think is really cool and definitely has specific use cases. Just think about, I had a friend that actually went over to Japan for a while and worked there. He went over there on vacation originally, met a girl, stayed over there and got a job working there. But so everything that he had installed for him by default came in Japanese. And he could even read Japanese somewhat, but I'm sure he was more comfortable in English. So in this case, he could have just gone and installed the English language pack there to make sure that he had what he needed so he could go through and access it. So cool feature. I thought it was kind of neat. And just the nuance of not having to have the admin rights, I thought was definitely interesting.
Great. Before we move out of development, I'd like to include that in SharePoint, there's the integration of Power Apps and Power Automate for DoD tenants. So that is also coming up. That's slated for June of this year.
There's also one that I'll toss out here too is, so Microsoft 365 Admin Center, they're now including a Microsoft browser usage action control. So basically this usage report shows which browsers people are using to access Microsoft 365, which on an overall thing, that's pretty good, but they've got an ulterior motive for this, which is basically also adding functionality to enable global administrators to create messages to notify their users who are still using Microsoft 365 services on Internet Explorer, which will be unsupported from August 17th. So this is a nice way for you to find out what browsers your users are using, but it's also a really good way to start weeding out those IE11 people who are waiting for you to pry it from their cold dead fingers, which will be on August 17th.
Is that all we got?
Yeah,
that's pretty much it for me.
Rolling out.
Cool, yeah. So moving to rolling out, this may be the smallest section we've ever had on one of these updates. So Tom, since I let Tamara go last time, you want to go ahead and kick us off?
There's
like don't take all of them, Tom.
I was going to say there's a whopping 4 items, none of which I actually highlighted. So I would be more than willing to hand this over to Tamara, because the one thing I could see her wanting to talk about would be the only other thing I would talk about. So go for it.
Oh, you're so kind. Microsoft Teams, separate window for Teams live events producer
wow,
experience.
Color me shocked.
I am so excited because I do live events twice a week, at least. So with this new feature, you're now able to produce your Teams live events as a producer in a separate window, allowing you to effectively manage your event. Because if you were to click off into a chat or anything like that, you actually lose the whole live event window. So this will be helpful. The only other one that I wanted to mention is Microsoft Project. You can import project desktop files now to Project for the web. So use a button on the project home to import your .mpp files into Project for the web. So that'll save some steps.
I'll give a shout out that's
Adam?
Oddly relevant for me right now, even though I'm not on a Mac. But they are basically bringing AI-based noise suppression in Teams out to Mac users. The reason I say this is oddly relevant, I've had construction going on at my house for like 12 months now. While we're recording this, I can hear jacks and power saws going on behind me, but I have no idea if they're being picked up on my mic. For
just
the most
slightly,
part,
just slightly.
Yeah, I was about to say, for the most part, I think Teams or noise suppression works pretty well. The default setting, if it's turned on, is on auto, where it will go through, and if it detects stuff, it'll try to turn on noise suppression. I will say I've definitely been in cases before where I had someone that had turned on noise suppression and thought it was great, and they had airplanes landing over their house, and it was not great. So you'll just have to kind of see and go through and use it. But for Mac users, that's a feature that's coming out that, again, like, I have definitely used this in the past. I have distant construction going on behind me, and sometimes when I'm really worried it sounds bad, like earlier in the meeting, it was like, wow, I can't even think that's so loud. Hopefully it wasn't overwhelming for you guys, and if not, that was because of the noise suppression that's by default built into the client.
It worked the way it should
I
have.
would
It's good.
I would like to point out with noise suppression though, you can have that on high.
Yep.
And it counts a dog snoring as speech.
This is firsthand experience that
This is
Tamara
I
is
got
sharing.
muted in a meeting that I
She
was
was funny.
facilitating because of the dog snoring in the background.
All right, cool. So we'll move on to Launched. Launched has a little bit more in it than Rolling Out, but still not a huge section. So Tom, since you didn't do anything for last section, would you like to take the honors?
Sure, I would love to do that. Probably one of the ones that I love the most is in Outlook for Windows. It's the share to team. And that means you can have a
Yes.
conversation, an email or a conversation in Outlook. And what you are able now to do is share that over into Teams. And I know that people get into philosophical things. Well, it really should have been in Teams to begin with. Well, it wasn't. So if it started as an email conversation and you really want to nip that before you get a whole bunch of replies and the whole bit, just do share to team, sticks it over in the channel there. And now it becomes focused within the channel. People can discuss it within there, and you start to get rid of a lot of the back and forth and replies coming in, replying to different things that other people may or may not have replied to. So I think that's a really good feature. It should be out in your tenant now. Definitely look for that one. Well worth it.
Great. Teams, presenter view in Teams meetings. This is coming out to everybody, including the DoD, GCC, and GCC High. So the presenter can view the slide notes and upcoming slides, helping the presenters keep the meeting on track and discuss the meeting notes as needed and navigate to meeting slides quickly. So it's almost taking the PowerPoint presentation presenter view and incorporating it into a Teams meeting. So I'm very excited about that. And then the only other thing that I wanted to mention is Microsoft Teams Lens integration with assignments. So this is for education. With the Lens integration into assignments, students will be able to directly include images of their physical work as part of submitting their assignments. In addition, students will be able to crop and rotate their work to help their educator readability. So this is coming out this month, so I would expect it to be in your tenant now. I just think Lens is great, and it's really underutilized and underappreciated application, so I'm glad that they're incorporating it into Teams and using it for the education factor.
Most
Yep,
definitely.
one of my definite mind blown style moments that I had in the last 5 years or so with 365 was the first time I really recognized OCR with Lens, which is basically like character recognition. And it was more or less in a demo showing it off, where we had gone through and taken notes. It was talking about a potential migration for a customer. We had taken notes on what we'd be doing from their AD and migrating with the hybrid exchange and everything like that, and taking pictures of the notes and having OCR turned on. And like a day later, when you went in, you could search for like exchange, and the picture of the whiteboard would come up because it could read the word exchange on the whiteboard and put that as metadata associated with the file. Really, really cool. The fact that that integration and Lens is coming, I imagine if OCR isn't built in right away, which I think it is into Lens, it'll be there very, very shortly. So pretty cool. I could see a big benefit for that. Imagine taking a screenshot of the worksheet you did or the report you wrote up or something, and they being able to actually recognize the language in there and then make that searchable based on the metadata. Really cool.
Very cool stuff. There was one
I
other.
don't have anything from my side. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just throw out one more just because I happened to bring it up in the first section we talked about. Again, going back to the whole IE and trying to make sure that people are not using IE coming up here really soon. they now have a new guide with scripts and tools for Microsoft Edge IE mode and site discovery. So basically, this is going to give your admins a way to detect which of your users frequently visited sites need to use Internet Explorer mode, IE mode, in Microsoft Edge. In the step-by-step guide, you'll get scripts to automate configuration of enterprise site discovery, get IE mode recommendations from a cloud-based tool, and create an enterprise mode site list that you'll deploy to your users. So again, we're coming close to the death of IE 11, and Microsoft is putting more and more tools out there that will give you the ability to get people off of IE over their cold dead fingers and then actually get them to, in all likelihood, and hopefully for Microsoft, use Edge and have that compatibility feature where they can still do what they did before, only in something other than IE.
I'm just going to say, if you're deathly holding on to something that you don't want it to die, IE is probably not the hill you want to die on.
Yeah, I could think of other hills to die on, and that's
I still love, like, have you guys seen the meme with the different internet browsers talking? And
yes.
It's always like it's them talking. It's like IE responding like significantly later than everything else, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like, what are we? And all of them are like browsers, and IE's blank, and what are we going to do? Da da da. IE's blank, and when do we want it? And
browsers.
Browsers.
Yeah. So we only have two things in canceled. One's a duplicate. The other one I think is kind of funny. So the other one is Outlook on the web option to show to client events. So there was an update in March that basically said, oh, we're pausing this development of the feature until the summer, but the Outlook Fit client is going to have this feature in there where you'll be able to go through and see it. And now it seems like they just canceled the feature. So the text box says they updated it in March saying, oh, we're pausing this for summer. So it looks like that just got removed. But apparently you can still do this in the Fit client if you want to see your declined events. Just know that it doesn't look like that's coming to Outlook on the web.
Before we adjourn, I did want to ask one question. Hey, Tom,
Yes.
What are those flowers in your background for?
Wow, somebody who is very special to me, Tamara, sent me flowers because I passed my third certification test in like 3 months. This was the Power Platform Fundamentals one. So she was kind enough to send me a bouquet of flowers and a balloon, and I felt very special. And thank you.
Wait, hold on. I got this. Hold on. I can get this right, maybe. I believe in you.
Yay!
Just don't
Nicely
raise your hand
played.
because we don't have the thing to take everything down.
You can't take it down, right?
Yeah, exactly. That feature's not available yet. Great. Well, I just
hope
wanted
you guys-
to put that plug in there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully you all enjoyed doing us. Congrats to Tom. Besides that, hopefully everyone's getting excited, getting vaccinated, getting ready to be back there. I know from my side, one of the conference series I speak with seems to be moving forward ahead with a conference in July finally. I think I have 3 of them between now and the end of the year. So hopefully you guys are getting out there and getting networking stuff again. And besides that, enjoy your holiday weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk to everyone else soon.
Bye,
Great.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.